All right, Travis.
Yes, sir.
Travis, so where'd you grow up? Where are you from originally?
Bancroft, West Virginia. I was born in Charleston in a hospital, but Bancroft is the town I grew up on.
And tell me about your childhood. You had both your mom and dad when you were young?
I had both my mom and dad. Best way to describe it, I was always provided for, like taken care of, loved, but there was definitely, when they say addiction's a family disease, I believe that wholeheartedly.
It runs in your family?
I remember like a lot of my stuff, looking back on my childhood, the screwed up stuff is like hindsight. They say hindsight's 20/20. But like I remember being like 5, 6 years old and our deep freezer being full of pot, and I know that's not like a normal thing. And then like other things like getting up in the middle of the night, 2, 3 a.m. and your mom's cleaning the house, rearranging the furniture and stuff. So like there was other drugs going on, but I didn't realize until later on in life what was actually going on. Like I said, I was always provided for. Dad worked a lot. He drank a lot. So there's like, I would say some trauma because of that. Like, but they always, I knew they loved me, and I was always taken care of, so that was like...
So it wasn't a horrible childhood?
It wasn't horrible, no. My dad, he would take me fishing, he would do stuff with me.
It sounds like a pretty good childhood.
Yeah, at the same time, he just was struggling with his own addiction. And,
yeah.
At the time, when you're a kid, you don't realize that, but...
Addiction is such a huge part of living this part of the country.
Oh, yeah.
What, I mean, you started at what age?
I'm gonna say when I really knew I had my wisdom teeth cut out when I was 15 years old. I got an infection, and at that time things weren't as strict as they are now, obviously, and they just basically threw Lortabs at me for like 6 months, and it started there pretty much. I mean, I had jobs and stuff, but and function, went to school, but like my summertime jobs, I would spend all my money on getting high.
Which was pain pills?
Yes.
Opiates?
Yes. Right around the same time I got my wisdom teeth cut out, a friend found a prescription of Oxycontin, and his grandparents covered whatever, and I had given him a list of things to look for, and since I did that, he gave me half of whatever he got, so it wasn't like, that's where, you know, you're young and you don't realize what everything costs and this and that. It's all fun. It was coming in for free. But then you get older and you have to feel like you have to have it every day to function or whatever, and then you got to start paying for it or whatever, and then everything changes.
So your family, addiction runs in your family?
Yes.
How bad did their stories get?
Pretty bad. Like I said, growing up, I know my parents both used a lot, but it was one of those deals. It was probably why, I feel like that's part of why after jail and prison, I had it ingrained in me to take care of your bills and your grown man stuff first, even no matter what you did, and why I never got as bad as I did before. But probably the worst, I can think, I was clean. It was before jail and prison, so mid-20s. Had my own spot, was doing well. My dad, mom went through some stuff. Mom moved out. Dad went to his doctor and got some nerve medication, and he was abusing it, obviously, and drinking wine with it late at night. And it actually got to a point where his boss, and mind you, he's worked the same job since he was 19, and he's 52 or 3 at this time. And he was driving to work and basically nodded out. There's a big truck stop down the road here in Nitro, and the trucks will fill up the lot and then park across the street in the gravel. So like if you veer off the road, you hit a truck, and that's what happened. I was working a midnight shift at a hospital, working housekeeping, and I saw my dad's wreck on the news. It basically looked like the tractor trailer was giving birth to this full-size truck, but the entire cab was inside of the back of the truck. They had to cut like both doors off the vehicle with jaws of life, pry him out of there. Like, it's a miracle he lived. And for 9 months, a year, he was in the hospital, and we didn't know for the better part of that whether he was going to live or die. And that's where like some of my distrust for like authority and government, whatever it comes from. Like, he had good insurance, like I said, a good job. While he was in there, everyone was worried because it looked like both his legs were just dangling, like around this point. And so in the beginning, we were all worried, talking to the doctors, is he going to lose his legs? Is he going to lose his legs? And the main orthopedic surgeon said, well, what you can't see is his hip on the inside, which is in hundreds of pieces. And they're like, those legs are nothing compared to what's going on in the inside of his hip, so we need to worry about his hip. So multiple surgeries, stuff like that, and they end up leaving the leg, the worst of the legs, but he can't feel it from here down. It's just like, they called it drop foot or whatever, but it doesn't need to come off. You'll do better with that. And what it is they were killing time for 6 months for his insurance. It's what I believe wholeheartedly, like insurance and doctors working together. Because if he would have got that leg cut off, amputated, his insurance would have had to pay him a settlement. So then fast forward through his recovery, coming home, at least a year later, he came home. And by this point, I had relapsed, moved back home, was selling drugs out of his house, this, that, and the other. But when he came home, then after the year was up, they told him they need to amputate his leg. And I'm just like, if that ain't fucking you, I don't know what is. I mean, it screams at why would you need to amputate it once everything is healed up and whatever, but you didn't need to do it the 6 months when he got paid for it. But yeah, I'd been off to the races. It was just a big mess. Dad's home. He's prescribed everything I love now, and my sister had a child at this point. He moved, and she's addicted to drugs. Her boyfriend, child's father's addicted to drugs. Dad, while he's in the hospital, out of his mind, like, they're having a baby, we need to let them move in. And which was a horrible idea. I was selling drugs to them.
How much of this community or your friends are addicted?
Oh, a lot of them. I mean, I wouldn't call them, I don't go around them anymore, obviously.
Yeah, you have to steer away from them now.
Yeah, I mean, I have people who I was friends with before the addiction I'll always consider a friend, but I stay the fuck away from them, you know what I mean? And it's everywhere. It's just like I said, I think certain drugs were worse in this region for certain reasons, but I really think the shit's everywhere. Like I said, I just went on vacation at the beach, and there's at Myrtle Beach, and it's just like certain parts of down there is just like here, homeless addicts wandering the streets and everything. It's a lot different than it was, like I said, when my heyday of using, when the cops didn't care to.
Yeah, so when I first started coming to this region, Kentucky and Appalachia, I was looking for hillbillies and coal miners. I was trying to get away from the drug addiction.
And all you came across was drug addicts. Yeah.
And it's as bad here as it is on Skid Row.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's horrible here.
And honestly, like touching on that, I really think that might have like certain values that were instilled in me when I was young. Like I feel like that helped snap me out of it, because I feel like this generations are getting more candy ass or whatever, or indoctrinated more, whatever you want to call it. And I was fortunate enough that, you know, my grandparents, you know, they weren't around. They died when I was still technically a teenager or whatever, but, you know, they had lived through the Depression and all of that stuff. And like I said, I think a lot of the good values they had ingrained in me and helped me later in life, even if I didn't listen when I was in whatever state or moment, you know what I mean? Some other crazy stuff. I mentioned a lot of my friends are dead. I mentioned my dad, after he had his accident or whatever, he moved my sister and her boyfriend in. That's been a revolving door of like, my sister stays there so long, kicks her out. And my parents are now raising her 7 or 8 year old. And the dad was in and out of jail a lot, the one who was living there at the time. And he had stole from dad, this and that, so I really didn't like him. We fought. But the last time he went to jail, he brought some stuff for her or whatever. And his dad was in jail, and it was all drugs. I knew them before my sister did because I bought my drugs from them. And where they're both felons here the last time. They'd always get out of jail, maybe go to family members out of state, get clean for a while, come home, and then just start the dope house back up. And that's the last time he was out, but his dad was in jail, and they told him that he had to leave when his dad got there, or his dad had to go live somewhere else. And I guess he had started back on meth, which makes you paranoid or whatever. So he went missing for a few days, and they found him hanging in his outbuilding. And,
He hung himself.
yeah. And that's really like, I think we can use any of our past trauma or bad experiences as an excuse. You can use something good as an excuse, but there's always someone who's got it way worse who's not using it as an excuse and doing what they got to do to make it, or someone with, obviously, tons of people have it better or whatever. But like, I think about my niece a lot if I ever do think about getting high, or try to think of, all the bad shit, if that makes sense. I couldn't imagine being 7 years old and having to hear, that your dad died or whatever. And then there's lots of other stuff that, like his family knew that she would probably get some sort of money or something from it. I don't know how it all works, but they went to the funeral home, and his family, who had made the arrangements or whatever, left a $1,500 balance in a 6-year-old's name, his 6-year-old daughter, who he didn't take care of. And that kind of pissed me off, I guess you would say.
You've been dealing with addiction still? So how old are you
I'm
now?
clean. I'm 33 years old.
When you say you're clean, you're using Suboxone or methadone or
Nothing.
Nothing. So you got clean.
Yeah, I got clean.
Did Suboxone or?
Maintenance drugs have been a part of my story, not lately, but I'm just clean, thank God. But prison and jail is what changed me. I won't say it got me completely clean, but I reached a level of mentally, and I came out, and I didn't want to use it first, but I knew I wanted to be independent. I didn't want to have to go back to the same hole I kept falling in. So no matter what I've did, or no matter how many times I've failed since I got out of jail and prison, I never got like I did before, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. You're how old now?
Huh?
How old are you?
I'm 33.
33. So do you have wife, kids, anything like that?
I have she'll be 3 October 23rd, and I'm with the mother. We've been together since, obviously before she was born. And yeah, my story just went like every end of the spectrum you can think of, good, bad. I mean, a lot of people wouldn't consider my life great, but for rural West Virginia and what I've been through, like I feel like I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah. How bad do things get for you?
Homelessness, jail, prison. I'm not a big guy, obviously, but I was down probably, when I went to jail, I was probably 20 pounds lighter than I am now.
Oh, really?
Scared to death, never been to jail, because that was a big part of my story. Like we touched on my childhood, about I was loved and I had a decent childhood. There was just, the screwed up parts of life in it as well. My parents, a lot of people would call it enabling, but I'm a firm believer that if everything didn't happen to me how it did, and I didn't make the choices I made before, that I wouldn't be doing or who I am right now. I might not have the 3-year-old little girl to live for. So when I was 19, I was fresh out of high school. A family member got me a job making $30 an hour, and then it was really off to the races for me. Before I even turned 20, my parents had me mental hygiened into my first treatment center. And basically all my 20s until 25 were just a series of getting clean a month, 6 months, 9 months, relapsing harder than before, and going back until I eventually wound up in jail and prison.
What ways have you found to support yourself? You had that job, but did addiction eventually get you?
Yeah, well, I lost that job, and that was the deal. I lost that job. I went on probably a couple more months scrapping, doing whatever to make money for dope and committing crimes, obviously. when I say they enabled me a lot, and it's grimy now, even thinking about it, but addiction doesn't care. I've thought of a lot of ways to describe it to people who haven't experienced it, and you can't really do it. It's basically like loving killing yourself slowly and those around you more than you love yourself or them. That's like the best way I can put it into words. But anyway, I lost that job and I didn't make it probably 6 months doing that stuff, and it was basically like I'd stole from my parents or something. They're like, we can press charges, or you can say you're suicidal and we can file a mental hygiene and try to get you some help. So that's what I did.
Would you consider are you naturally self-destructive, or did the drugs make you that way?
I don't know. I wouldn't say it's self-destructive. I mean, obviously it is, yeah. It's definitely self-destructive, and I have been self-destructive since a young age. I was one of those kids that cut, stuff like that. Never anything like major,
So you were cutting before the drugs?
Yes.
Yeah.
And but it wasn't. I didn't want to hurt myself. I really, looking back, think you cut yourself, your brain produces endorphins, and I really think that's like what was going on. Like just analyzing. I don't know.
Were you on any of the ADHD drugs?
Oh yeah, that's another thing. Like I don't like to place blame, because I know that's like one of the quickest ways. If you got an excuse for everything, then you can just keep getting high. You know what I mean? But when I was in the 2nd or 3rd grade, my mom cleaned houses like for a living. I'd play hooky and go with her, and one time I did, and I found some M80s in this house she was cleaning. I took the M80s to school, gave to 2 or 3 of my buddies. The next day when I got to school, they were tearing my desk apart. One of the kids' moms had come in or whatever. So I'm sitting here thinking, now it sounds screwed up, like seeing all I've seen through school and what people get away with and what they do get in trouble for. But they made me go have a psych eval, and they suspended me indefinitely at that young until I had the psych eval, and then saw the doctor after that and got prescribed to Adderall, I think.
And that started?
I didn't like it. I mean, even then I knew like I didn't feel right when I took it, you know what I mean?
And that started in high school?
No, this was in elementary school.
Oh, really?
Like 6, 7 years old.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. And
you think that kind of...
I think it definitely played a factor in how I viewed things, and I feel like it may give a predisposition for addiction, but I'm no expert.
Yeah, no, but it as a 6-year-old, you
shouldn't be taking amphetamines. You know what I mean? That's what they are.
You learn that drugs aren't the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, I was. So that went on till probably about 5th grade, and once I got into middle school, I didn't take it. I'd cheek them and throw them away, whatever, give them to my buddies who liked them or whatever. I was pretty much a wild child all through school. Like, I definitely acted out and got in a lot of trouble and stuff like that. But
and what do you think? Like, you're one of the few that have gotten clean. What is it about your personality or your mindset that helped you do that?
There comes a time, I mean, I'm not an old man, but I'm not a young man anymore either, like kind of in between, I guess you'd say. And you just, it's not always like, 100% I want to get clean. Sometimes it's 51% you want to get clean, and 49%, you still want to live that life. But I think I'd hurt enough, and you just come to this conclusion that no one's going to come along and save you. You got to save yourself.
And having a child?
Yeah, most definitely. Because like I said, I've been out of jail and prison probably 7 or 8 years now. 3 or 4 years, I kind of would drink, smoke, do whatever, but I paid my bills first. I went to work, and I'm good. I ain't going back to jail or prison. But then I met my child's mother. She got pregnant probably within 2 months. Fortunately for me, that we really did like and care for each other. And we just started making plans, one after the other, about what's the next right thing to do for each other and our child.
Was she using as well at one point? Never.
When I say it's a family disease, it's kind of crazy how things pan out. One of my many trips to a rehab, they had put me all the way up in Fairmont, West Virginia, at this place called the ACT unit, by that time, I had made connections before from previous treatments and stuff in Narcotics Anonymous and places like that. So I'm actually on the phone from Fairmont trying to line up treatment down this way. And I called someone I knew, and he was telling me about this treatment center where you had to go through a homeless shelter first to get into it. Which I really didn't want to do, but he's like, my neighbor said you can stay on his couch if the shelter gets too rough, this and that and the other. So long story short, the neighbor who he put me in contact with, I've remained friends with, an older gentleman, and ended up becoming friends with his son. And I had him living with me as a roommate, and that is how I met my significant other. It was his sister.
Oh, really?
So like everything ties back into this, the people I do know in recovery here.
And at this point, you've been clean for 3 years?
Not quite 3 years, no, because I have drank and stuff like that, you know what I mean?
So the temptation is still there?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's always going to be there for sure. Other times, like I said, when I say I've been to treatment, I can't count on two hands how many times I've been to treatment, Narcotics Anonymous, other types of recovery stuff. And I used to obsess so much about that number of, oh, I got this many days clean and this is my date. And I just need to fucking worry about today. You know what I mean?
What would you...
Today's obtainable. You start thinking, you know what I mean?
What advice would you give to somebody who's struggling with addiction like this? Trying to get clean?
There's just so much. Like, do it just for today, obviously. Like, it's easier to focus on, well, I just don't have to get high today. Maybe if I feel like it tomorrow, I will, and then tomorrow comes, it's the same thing. You know what I mean? Just do it for that day. But I don't know. You don't have to hit that rock bottom. Like, everyone thinks you have to get so bad. And, you know, I've been that case where I've been so bad, homeless, you know, everything, jail, prison. And just because I failed after that, I realized that I didn't have to get that low again. I didn't have to, it doesn't have to be that fucking brutal and ugly. You just have to, I think I started getting a life that I didn't think was achievable back then when I was that bad. And that was enough to even where if I did falter, like something would always kick back in. Like, it's gotten better just from here to here, and you haven't lost that yet, but you will fucking lose it. You know you will, and you know where you'll end up.
Is it difficult to be in this region of the country where drugs are so prevalent and be clean?
It's hard, but man, I've realized it's everywhere. I mean, we go to the beach and it's just the same as here. You see the homeless addicts everywhere. I mean, you can spot people, you know, and it's obvious. I feel like when I was in my heyday, this is what I don't get. This is where some of my distrust for the government and stuff comes in. But like when they were pumping all those pain pills and stuff down in here, they would arrest your ass then if you were out in the streets using. I've been pulled over, handcuffed to fences while they tore my car apart without my permission, this, that, and the other. And now you fast forward, what, 10, 15 years later, and they're walking down the street shooting up, and you tell, hey, a cop sees them, like, oh, can't do nothing about it, this and that. Well, how come you could do something about it 10 years ago, but you couldn't now? I try not to dive into that so much, because then that, you know what I mean? Like, it all comes back to me, though. It's no, like I said, no one's gonna get clean for me. No one's gonna want a better life for myself or my family other than me and my family. So I tried to I believe a lot of, and I have a lot of theories, but at the same time, I can't do anything about them, and dwelling on them only hurts myself. If that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. Well, Travis, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Appreciate you.
I wish you the best of luck with your daughter and your wife.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.